there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Maverick podcast. And today I am talking about the Week 16 matchups, starts and sits that you need to know for your championship week in fantasy football. So you definitely want to check it out. Here we go.
Listen up. It's time for the Fantasy Maverick podcast, starring the guy who's going to help you win that fantasy championship, Jimmy Maverick.
Hello there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Maverick podcast, coming at you from Santa Fe, New Mexico. And today, normally I have Swami Rob joining me to go over the matchups, the starts and sits for Week 16, but he was unable to join us. He had a family emergency this morning, so no problem. We will probably see him here last week to kind of wrap up the season, to see how everybody did. But we've got 4 days of football coming up this weekend, so nice holiday weekend. Big Week 16 championships on the line. I want to give you the information you need to know who to start and who to sit this week. And just wanted to also let you know in my Friends League, I was feeling so good about my my Friends League team making it to the championship game, but unfortunately I fell short. I lost 139 to 136. It was very, very close. But who could have predicted and projected that the Jets would have beaten the Rams this weekend? That was just flabbergasted me. And of course, the injury to Cam Akers, and he only got like 10 fantasy points. Had some, he was just one of among several disappointing performances. T.Y. Hilton only got like 10 points. And then I had Deontay Johnson on Monday night, who had a chance to get it for me. I was only down by 17. I only needed 17 out of him. And then early in the second quarter, he got the touchdown. He was sitting at like 13 points. I'm like, he could totally get me another 4 points before the end of this game. No, it didn't happen. So anyway, that's it. I'm playing for the third place game this weekend. We'll see if I end up with any money in this league. But, I do have 2 championships this year, so I'm pretty happy with that. And even in the Fantasy Football Players Championship, I've got a chance to win an additional prize if my one team does very well this weekend. I need to score a lot of points. If I get like 180 or 200 points this weekend, have one of those kind of weeks, I could definitely move into the prize position. So win some additional money there. But in the meantime, let's just get to it. We've got tons of games. We got one game on Christmas, so that's Friday. We've got the 6-8 Vikings at the 10-4 Saints. And the Saints, you know what, man, they're kind of reeling, man. They've lost their last 2. Of course, they played Kansas City last week, but then they lost to Philly the week before. So now they get the Vikings, who is their ultimate foil. So this should be an interesting game. As far as the Vikings go, I got to say I really, really like Justin Jefferson. I think he's definitely a start, but I would sit Adam Thielen. Thielen has only gotten 7 targets in the past 2 weeks. In the meantime, Justin Jefferson just last week got 11 targets. So Jefferson is the primary target in that backfield. It's not enough of a high volume offense to really trust Adam Thielen, plus, they're going to give the ball a ton to Dalvin Cook. So anyway, I just think that, you can totally trust Justin Jefferson, though. So definitely start him for this week. On the other side, I do like starting Emmanuel Sanders. It is a top 10 matchup against wide receivers for the New Orleans, receivers. And obviously, he's pretty much the only receiver you can trust. You've also got Jared Cook. You can put Jared Cook in there as well. Not as good a matchup for him, but still, they should be good. They should be productive, and you can definitely go that route. Now, going on to Saturday. Saturday, we've got, it's like 3 or 4 games on Saturday, so that's pretty awesome. Let's start off. We got the 9-5 Buccaneers at the 5-9 Lions. Obviously, Lions have been playing tougher. Lions can play the spoiler. Why not? We're at that point in the year where the spoilers happen. Just look at the Jets, just playing spoiler. And when you don't have anything left to play for, you're just playing to ruin some other team's season. So as far as the Bucs go, I like everybody on the Bucs to start except for Rob Gronkowski. Okay, I would sit the Gronk. It's a bottom 10 matchup, But that's the only bad matchup for the Buccaneers offense. And so I think it's going to be a productive day for Tom Brady. It's going to be a productive day for the receivers, for the backfield. Like I said, they're all good to go. So I would start them all. Now, on the flip side, on the Lions side, I would sit DeAndre Swift. It is Tampa Bay has allowed the 5th fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs. So definitely want to stay away from Swift. But the Lions receivers are in a great matchup situation. So Marvin Jones and TJ Hawkinson should be very good. And I'm not scared of starting Matthew Stafford this week, which I'm actually going to have to do in one of my leagues. So we'll see what happens there. The next game is going to be the 5-8 Niners at the 8-6 Cardinals. So this is obviously an NFC West matchup, and Arizona is currently in the 7th seed for the fantasy playoffs. So they need this win if they want to stay in the playoff in the playoff hunt. Now on the 49ers side, I gotta say, man, I'm just not keen on starting any players from the Niners right now. George Kittle might be back this week, and even though it looks like that would be a great time to start him, I'm guessing that most of you who took George Kittle do not have that team in the playoffs, though, because of where you had to take him in the draft. But I would sit George Kittle. I need a show-me game. He's been gone for most of the season, and it's also a bad matchup. Arizona's top 7 against tight ends. So, again, it's just sort of a very risky play. I would stay away from it. On the other side, on the Cardinals side, I would sit Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds. It's a bottom 6 matchup for them. And Kyler Murray also, even though he did great last week, I have him as a sit this week. Tough matchup, and his record has not been good over the past month. He had 3 duds in a row before his good game last week, but now it's a tough matchup. So I'm not really thrilled with the idea of starting him for my championship week. That's where I'm at. Next up, we've got the Dolphins, who are at 9-5, at the Raiders, who are 7-7. The Dolphins are at the 7th seed right now, and the Raiders are at the 9th seed. So both these teams really need a win. This really strikes me. This could be a very good game, but I got to say the Raiders have really been fading over the past few weeks. And the problem with the Raiders is they don't have any receiving options. You got Waller, who's fantastic. You got Jacobs, who's a very good running back. But they have no receivers, and that's the problem, man. That's the critical weakness of this team. They're trying to get stuff done, and they just don't have the capacity to do it. Plus, Derek Carr is actually he's out. It's Marcus Mariota, right? Mariota looked pretty good last week, right? I would not start him though. Let's start with the Dolphins though. So the Dolphins. I do have Myles Gaskin as a start. He should be returning from the COVID list this week. So if he plays, he's already healthy. It's a good matchup. He's absolutely worth a start. So I would put him back in your lineup if you got him. Now on the Raiders side, it is a tough matchup for their 2 best players. Josh Jacobs and Darren Waller are both in bottom 10 matchup situations. So I really don't like them. I'm not going to sit them. But just know that. Just know that do you have a better option? Do you have a better matchup? I might go with that instead. I don't think I would sit Waller for anything, though. I would play Waller no matter what. Okay, so that was it for Saturday. So now we got the Sunday early games. Now this one looks like, obviously, this is a one with huge playoff implications. We got the 10-4 Colts at the 11-3 Steelers. Steelers have now dropped 3 straight, and I got to say, man, it really looks like that cushy schedule has caught up with them. I mean, of their 3 losses, 2 of them have been against poor teams. They lost to Cincinnati, and didn't they lose to Philly? I can't think of who that other loss was. But boy, I got to say, man, I think the easy schedule has finally caught up with them. Ben Roethlisberger looks terrible. They don't really have much of a run game. And this game really looks like a defensive struggle. I've constantly also talked about how underwhelming the Colts offense is, and it's just Phil Rivers is over the hill, game manager, that sort of thing. But the Pittsburgh defense is top 10 against all fantasy positions. The Indy defense is top 10 against all positions except for the running back. So, again, I just don't think there's a lot of opportunities here for these players. And if you can bench them for players in better situations, I would do it because I think it's going to be a low scoring game. It just looks to be something like where the winner is going to get like 17 points, and that's it. The only player I could say that you could start would be Benny Snell, who got 18 touches and 4 targets last week. That's great volume, and again, that's the weakest part of the Indy defense. So that will be the primary point of attack, and so I would go with that. Now we have the 4-10 Falcons at the 13-1 Chiefs, and again, this smells like a spoiler game. Chiefs are trying to hold on to that number 1 seed in the AFC, and the Falcons can be the spoiler, man. They can pull the upset. Now on the Falcons side, Kansas City is top 10 against wide receivers. So Calvin Ridley, I would not sit. I think Calvin Ridley is still a start, but I got to say Julio Jones, Russell Gage, I would not start them this week. Julio's just had the ongoing hamstring issue, just can't seem to get over it. And Russell Gage has been a beneficiary of Julio Jones' absence. I don't think either of them is going to get enough volume to be fantasy worthy this week against this tough defense. Also on the Falcons side, I would not bother with the Falcons backfield right now. Gurley is just completely done. The top running back last week was Ito Smith, who got 6 carries. Don't even bother, man. It's a dead zone. Don't even do it. And then on the flip side, the Chiefs, of course, you're going to start the big 3 on the Chiefs. But Le'Veon Bell, now that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is out, I would sit Le'Veon Bell. I don't think he's a good option. It is a tough matchup. Falcons are 8th best against the run. And I got to say, man, Bell has been incredibly underwhelming. He doesn't have it anymore, man. He doesn't have what he once did. So I would just stay away. So that's it as far as that's concerned. Next up, we've got the 7-7 Bears at the 1-13 Jaguars. And the great news for the Jaguars was even though they lost, because the Jets won, they are now the number 1 pick for the NFL draft. So that means, and they didn't even have to do anything to do it. They just got the one. They just keep on losing. This does not look like a good game for the Jags. I got to tell you, I'm recommending you sit all the Jags this week. Bears are top 10 against all fantasy positions, so it's not going to be a good game for them. I mean, James Robinson, I guess you should probably start. He's been good enough, but I wouldn't start anyone else. But on the Bears side, I got to say, man, the Jags defense is very porous. They're bottom 10 against basically every fantasy position. So I think all the Bears are good to go, even including Marcus Mariota. If you need to stream a quarterback, I think he's a good option. So anyway, that game looks like the Bears should take control and should be just fine and stay in the playoff hunt. Next up, we've got the 3-10-1 Bengals at the 4-10 Texans. So my big question is, do the Bengals have a huge letdown this week after that huge win over the Steelers in Week 15? As far as starts go for the Bengals, I got to say I like Giovanni Bernard. I like what they did with him last week. Basically, what Cincinnati did was they did a run-centric offense. They ran Giovanni Bernard. They ran Ryan Finley. 35 total carries between those two. That's great. That's great volume. And so the Texans very vulnerable against the run. They're vulnerable against everything. But I think that's going to be how they're going to attack this defense also. And even though it is a good matchup for the Cincinnati receivers, I really feel like you need to sit them because Finley only threw the ball 13 times last week. That's it. And with the 13 pass attempts, you're not going to get any fantasy relevant receivers unless someone catches a touchdown. You don't want to take that chance in a championship week, so I would sit the Cincinnati receivers. Now, on the flip side, the Houston offense looks great right now. I would start everybody against this Bengals defense. I think they can be very effective. So That's it for that game. Next up, we got the 5-9 Giants at the 9-5 Ravens. The Ravens appear to be back on track. They're currently in the 8th seed right now in the AFC, so they need the win. I think it's going to happen. I'm not excited about starting any of the Giants this week, even though the matchups are fine. There's no daunting matchups against the Ravens. So if you need to start a Giant, you can, but I would just try to find someone else. I just don't think that the offense has enough caliber in it to get you what you need for fantasy-wise. Now, on the Ravens side, you got to start J.K. Dobbins. He's been playing great, and the Giants have given up the 9th most fantasy points to running backs. So definitely do that. And one thing, just a word of caution, the Giants are top 4 against the quarterback. So Lamar Jackson, I'm not going to make him a sit, but you just need to know that. And I think really when it comes to Lamar Jackson, he's paying the bills on his feet. So he's paying his bills on the ground. So it is a good matchup on the ground. So I think he's fine. But just so you know, it's not going to be a good passing game for him. But then again, when has Lamar Jackson had a good passing game this season? It just really hasn't happened. All right, so let's go on here if I can get to the next page. All right, so next up, we've got the 10-4 Browns at the surging 1-13 Jets. I just had to say, man, the Jets, they avoided the 0-16 season, right? But they also probably lost Trevor Lawrence in the draft next year. So was it worth it, Jets? Was it worth it? Was it worth it to do that to my fantasy team, what you did? I'm glad you lost that first pick. Okay, as far as the Browns go, man, start everybody. Good matchups. They should be great. Of course, I said that about the Rams last week, and look what happened. But again, it should be good for the Browns. They're a really good team, and they should get the win here. On the Jets side, I would sit Ty Johnson and Frank Gore. Now, of course, they both had really good games last week, but Cleveland is top 7 against the run. Of course, the Rams are also top 10 against the run as well. But I don't know what to say about that. But I would sit him this week. I mean, as if you're in the championship game with Frank Gore. You're not. But just in case, if you're wondering, and he's and he's sitting on your waiver wire, you're like, oh, should I pick him up? No, don't do it. It's not worth it. The Sunday afternoon games start with the Panthers, the 4-10 Panthers at the 6-8 Washington football team. I got to tell you, man, the NFC least just doesn't want to make the playoffs. We should vacate that spot and give it to someone who's more worthy because they can't win any games. It's ridiculous. Washington is 6-8, and they're the top team in the NFC East. Oh, my gosh. Well, despite that, the Washington defense is very good. They are 3rd best against running backs and wide receivers, and they're 8th best against quarterbacks. So Carolina, man, I got to express lots of caution about starting any Carolina players, although, CMC might be back this week. DJ Moore had a good game last week. I think you're going to start him anyway, but I'm just saying, if you have an option, if you have a better option on your bench, I would start them instead. The Washington defense is legit, and I think Washington defense is probably going to be one of my top targets for a fantasy defense for next season. I think that they made some incredible strides this year and certainly outperformed what most people expected. Also, I think J.D. McKissick and Antonio Gibson are both starts. McKissick is the start. Antonio Gibson is probably still going to miss that game because he's got that toe injury, and it's a top 6 matchup. So McKissick is definite start for this week. The next game is the 5-9 Broncos at the 5-9 Chargers. Another lost season for both these teams. I would sit the Broncos receivers, as that is the strongest part of the Chargers defense. They've allowed the 6th fewest points to the wide receiver position. And I would also sit Hunter Henry, as Broncos are top 10 against tight ends. Just about everyone else, though, should be good to go. Playing. They're going to be fine. We have the 4-9-1 Eagles at the 5-9 Cowboys. Again, inexplicably, these two teams are still in the playoff race with Washington. It's pathetic. One thing I really liked last week, Jalen Hurts really did well in that game against Arizona. and he gets another great matchup this week. Cowboys are a top 10 defense for opposing quarterbacks. So I think it's a great matchup. He's a great streaming option. I also like Miles Sanders, who's been such a disappointment this year with the exception of a few good games, but Dallas has given up the 7th most points to running backs. So anyway, it's again a good matchup. All Dallas players are a start against this Eagles defense, so that should be a good, productive fantasy game. I don't see anything really daunting here. So like I said, that's what you want. Good matchups. That's what you get with this game. Now, of course, we have the 9-5 Rams at the 10-4 Seahawks. I'm guessing the Rams just were looking ahead, right? They were totally looking past the Jets. And they got surprised, but look, the Jets took them out of the top spot in the NFC West. So they're now like in the 6th position. I think they fell to 6th. The Seahawks have jumped up to the 3rd seed. And so this is a big game. This game means a lot to both these teams to maintain that high seeding and stay in a position where they could potentially get the number 1 seed. Of course, the Green Bay has to stumble, but that you need the win in order to stay in that position. So it's going to be devastating to whichever team loses this. Although I don't think either one would drop out of the playoff contention if they lose. For the Rams, now that Cam Akers has that high ankle sprain, I'm telling you, start Darrell Henderson. It's a top 10 matchup, and I think he's going to be the lead back. Malcolm Brown hasn't done anything, barely gotten any usage over the course of the past month. Anyway, go with Darrell Henderson. I also like all the Rams. Again, it's a great matchup. There's, the Seahawks defense is not that good. But again, they did terrible last week against the Jets. Goff, I can't even explain Goff. I don't know what's going to happen with him. I think they got to start looking at getting a different quarterback in the Rams, just because I can't figure out how he keeps stumbling the way he does, man. I mean, it's it's ridiculous. Now on the Seahawks side, listen to this. The Rams defense is number 1 against quarterbacks, number 1 against receivers, number 4 against running backs. So of course Frank Gore, it's like 20 points last week. Oh gosh. Okay. So anyway, it makes me want to sit the Seahawks players, but who's going to sit DK Metcalf or Russell Wilson or Chris Carson? But just so you know, man, this is not a good matchup for them. This is a high stakes game. So I really see, I think the Rams are going to fight very hard to get back into that number 1 position in their division. So that's where I think that game is going. Next up, we have the 10-4 the 10-4 Titans at the 11-3 Packers. One thing you got to know, man, you can't stop Derrick Henry when they're going for the playoffs. It's a top 5 matchup. So yeah, Derrick Henry all the way. Now the Packers defense is very good against receivers and quarterbacks. I'm telling you right now, you should sit Ryan Tannehill. It's a bad matchup for him. And even though, he did great last week against Detroit, but again, it was Detroit. This is not Detroit. All right. This is a much tougher game. So Ryan Tannehill is a sit. And also Green Bay is 8th best against receivers. So A.J. Brown and Corey Davis for me are sits because they're so low volume. And this just seems like a game where Henry is going to run the ball like 35 times and they'll pass like 10 times. It's going to be one of those kind of games. So I would just, other than Derrick Henry, I would stay away from the Titans offense. Now on the Packers side, the Titans defense is not very good. So everyone on the Packers is a start. Go with it. It's great matchups across the board. So I love all that. Finally, we have Monday Night Football, and we have the 11-3 Bills at the 6-8 Patriots. Now, of course, the Patriots were eliminated from the playoffs when they lost to Miami last week. And I got to say, now the Patriots are the ultimate spoiler. And they're just going to try to spoil this Bills party. They do have a formidable defense. They're third best against quarterbacks. They're fifth best against wide receivers. Now, I'm not going to sit Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. This offense has been, the Bills' offense has been playing lights out. But I really could see the Patriots causing them problems and disrupting them as they have nothing else to play for, man. So why not be the spoiler? It's been a long time since we've seen the Patriots as spoilers. But that's what I would think. And then as far as the Patriots go, man, I just don't trust any Patriots for fantasy. Not a one. So sit them all, and I'm sure you're doing that anyway. So anyway, that's it. That is it for the Week 16 matchup. So good luck in your championship fantasy game. I wish you the best of luck, and I want to see you bring home that championship. Anyway, I wish I had my game, my one game in the championship this week, but it was not meant to be. That's all right. It's fine. There's always next year, right? So anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions about these players or any other players, please leave a comment down below. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And once again, have a great Week 16. And of course, a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and all that good stuff. Have a good day, everybody.